This podcast is now sold as an ETF. This podcast is now sold as an NTF, a non-tradable. This podcast is now available. What is it? NFT. Okay. Let me restart this joke. Okay. Let me restart the joke. This podcast is now available as an NFT. It's a nowhere forever tortoise. You know what's interesting is that, what was it? The sort of after World War II, when the economy in the sort of first world countries, America, Europe, etc., was booming. The idea was increased materialism, sort of, stack up your money, buy things, buy cars, buy houses, buy it all. And then we had the generation that said, I refuse that. The hippies said, you know what, mother and father, I reject your materialism, and I'm going to go take LSD and dance to the wildfires in Yosemite National Park. And then the next generation, sort of in between that. And now I think we're in, again, materialism, but materialism in a new form. Okay, hear me out. I'm talking about virtual materialism. I think we are in the midst of a consumer culture. And what we'll see is a generation, maybe it's going to be Generation Alpha, the ones after Z, that put increased social value on one's digital assets. And maybe it won't be Generation Alpha. Maybe it's already Gen Z and Millennials and Gen X. But we're definitely in, I think, a period where there's like some people that immediately understand the so-called quote-unquote value of digital assets. I'm talking NFTs, nowhere fallacy tortoise. And then there's also the mindset of like, I have no idea how a digital item can be of any value. I have no idea how a kid can pay $5 for a piece of code. And hey, man, I'm not to say one is more correct than the other, but I do think we as humans attribute, status to what an individual has or shows. I'm not saying all of us do that, but there's inherently like a certain link that the zeitgeist of society attributes to the material wealth of an individual. And so when that material wealth is no longer material but completely virtual, it's interesting. That's what I've been thinking about, man. Like this idea of a reduced materialism and an increased virtualism. Because I can kind of like, I can see myself drifting into that. Not necessarily, like, I don't care about how much I own in the material world, and really I don't care about how much I own in the virtual world, but I do see myself getting rid of more and more things in the I do see myself getting rid of more and more things in the material world and focusing more and more effort into the virtual world. I'd imagine there are also other people listening to this that maybe can relate. I'd be interested. It is a little alleviating though, because like it means, at least I'm doing it mainly because it's easier to just pick up and move, man. Kind of going into the state of like, just virtual nomad, tech nomad. That's been on my mind lately. It's just the idea of not being tied down to any one place. And I think a lot of people have done that in the past, sort of like, the RV life, the van life, just drifting from place to place, exploring and traveling. And I think that is going to become more and more commonplace as we move into the new economy that is built on digital infrastructures and built on sort of the gig economy, so to speak, where you aren't necessarily tied down to any individual place. You're sort of your own freelancer. You pick up jobs, through these virtual systems via the internet. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I think instead of the archetypal hobo with a stick and then like a cloth bag tied to the end of it, it's going to be a hobo with a stick and a laptop, a VR headset tied to the end of it. And then there's the whole idea of like off-grid living as well. Being completely detached from the sort of city, massive collections of people. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, the city's nice, I've been a city slicker for all my life. I'll tell you that much. But after a while, man, I don't know. I think there's I don't know. It could. Okay. I need to adjust my chair for this. There may be. I wonder if we'll begin to see more of like a split. We'll have, as technology increases. Let's give the example of like Starlink. As that technology develops further and deploys worldwide, where you can essentially connect to the grid while you're off grid more easily, cheaper. I imagine the prospect of living off grid and the process of setting up a homestead to live off grid will increasingly get simpler for the individual to do so if they choose. But I also think we'll see, coinciding with that, perhaps the introduction of like smart cities. So like completely connected cities that like, fully autonomous, interconnected to smart devices and like augmented reality glasses where you're like looking around and seeing like navigation patterns and who knows what. Pay $5 to unlock the ad-free city experience. and I feel like both will have some benefits and some downsides. But I would personally lean more towards the off-grid living, because that's, at least that's where I'm leaning towards now. Because like we're already kind of in the smart city, at least the early stages of it. Like when you're driving, your phone's fully connected, whereas 15 years ago you had to get like an actual GPS unit in your car. Now it's just like in your pocket. So it is in a sense, the first iteration of a smart city. And then also the introduction of like AI, autonomous cars. I think that will just further develop. But yeah, man, the idea of like living off grid, that's, I think virtual reality then, if one is living off grid, they can still remain connected, not only through the means that the internet currently provides, like watching YouTube, or even like, video calls that is synonymous or is comes to mind when you're talking about like continuing your remote work job off grid. But then we see the introduction of like the metaverse off grid, where all you have to do is, if you're in a cabin in Montana without anyone around you, all you have to do is put on your VR headset, and then all of a sudden you're at the workplace meeting if you need to, or you're at the coffee shop, if you need to, the co-working space, the virtual metaverse co-working space. And I think that's good. I think, because like gosh, since last season of the VR experience, I feel like the censorship has just gotten increased in our virtual collective internet consciousness. Like Trump got banned on Twitter. Pretty crazy. And again, I don't like to get political on the show, but I will say that pineapple on pizza is good, and if you don't agree with me, then, I'm sorry, but, you're wrong. Pineapple on pizza is good. And if you don't like that politics, if you don't like my viewpoint on that political agenda, then, dude, I love you. Okay, but back to censorship. The antidote is like the decentralization of the individual, the decentralization of the individual's belongings, not relying on the grid, I think. And it gives me hope that we are seeing simultaneously the introduction of technologies that allow for better decentralization, almost as like an answer to increased censorship. You have individuals getting kicked off social media, their bank accounts getting barred from accepting payments from their subscribers because they have, quote unquote, said dangerous things or shared dangerous ideas. But simultaneously, you have the rise in technology such as Bitcoin that makes it uncensorable for that individual to receive funds from their subscribers or to build a business. I'm talking about the infamous Balix Moans, of course. Balix phones. But not even him, like he was sort of the first cog in the process of this, the first domino. And then what interests me is that, you can have someone get censored and then the people that censor that person think it won't eventually happen to them. But if you look at history, like the people that censored others in the rising of the communist state in Russia were the first ones to then be cut down after the so-called quote unquote you know rich class, the God, what is the word? It's like the Russian, the bourgeoisie. Okay, so after the bourgeoisie were then sort of the their capital was redistributed, quote, redistributed to the quote unquote working class in the name of the working class, then the people that redistributed the bourgeoisie's capital were then cut down. So it's like, if you do something to your neighbor, it will happen to you. What you reap is what you sow. So what I'm saying is that I think if someone censors another on a virtual platform, as we're seeing, that person will eventually get censored by the very system that they upheld as helping, this system that they propped up as, hey, this needs to happen because it's for the greater good, will eventually be the one that cuts them down, I think. It's interesting. It's interesting to see this unfold. I, for one, have kind of like, as it increases in the virtual or in the cyberspace, increased censorship, increased politicism, it's just kind of reaffirmed that, like, it's all just a show. It's all just like fiction that is sort of created by legacy media, created by people that have an interest in upholding a false narrative. And I don't think it's just legacy media. I think that will also permeate to new media. It's just people, it's individuals wanting to press power on other individuals. Like, you have like Marvel creates stories around fictional characters, but the patterns in those stories are archetypal. Like hero, very simply, hero versus bad guy. Okay, but then you have media companies, mainly news, mainly it's manifesting as news cycles that still want to create that narrative, but instead of fictional characters like Thor and Thanos, they place actual names of politicians, celebrities into those roles. And then they permeate those ideas, because I think that's kind of the inherent thing, whether they're doing it for money, whether they're doing it for power, whether they're doing it to push a certain agenda. Who knows? But again, I think they're even that, like, you're seeing so much of that, but we're also seeing so much of the opposite of that, which is like free media, free speech, uncensorable networks that cannot be censored by the big brother. Which, personally, that gives me hope. HOPE. That eventually the nowhere for toes will eventually. And then, and as always, you're watching and listening to
Disrupt Audio Frequency Podcast.
Lucid dreaming, man. I was falling asleep the other night, and uh, I was jumping from mountain to mountain, like kind of jumping, kind of half hiking as well. And I was on a very narrow, icy path. And then I tried to jump a gap, and I started falling, and I fell and I fell, and then I realized I'm dreaming. I was like, I'm dreaming, Jack. You can just fly. And so then I tried to fly, but I was like right in the middle of lucidity and waking, and also losing the lucidity and just falling deep into the dream, the unconscious, where you're just watching it. But then my nose was stuffy, and I was trying to breathe, and I couldn't breathe, and so then I breathed through my mouth. I took a breath through my mouth, and then I woke up, and then I had to go to the restroom, to the men's room, and but it got me thinking. I was like, okay, sort of. I'm not a very good lucid dreamer. Maybe someone listening is. If you are, then I deeply respect your ability to lucid dream. But I can't really lucid dream too well. One of the things I want to eventually learn. But it got me thinking, man, what if there's a device down the line that allows us to multiplayer lucid dream? How dope would that be? But then at that point, it's basically just full dive, you know? I mean, it would be full dive VR at that point. And I think, again, the limit to that, like, we're getting pretty close to controlling. We're getting pretty close to the brain to computer interfaces that are non-invasive. But then it's like the computer to brain. That's the thing. We're unlocking brain to computer, but computer to brain. That's tough, because right now for computer to brain, you have to have the display that overtakes the sense, the sight sense. The display being pixels, a screen strapped to your face, you know? Light influencing the retinas to create a layer of false unreality. But what about the closed eye, man? That's the thing, the closed eye. And I think, I don't know. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I'm doubting humans' ability to create a device that sends signals to the brain to create visuals via closed eye. I would imagine, I'm sure it'll be possible, like, you know, way down the line. But I'm imagining one of the first iterations we'll see after VR, after more streamlined VR devices, is the contacts. Like, there was that company a couple years ago that said they've created the first, like, the smallest LCD screen. So I'm sure that will eventually, you know, bloom into technology that allows full display into contacts. And then you could essentially close your eyes and see something, see light, which that light would then formulate into, say, a video game. And then you could also have another device that allows you to control that video game via thinking. At that point, more or less, we would arrive at full dive lucidity, and it would be called Lucid X. Actually, no, that sounds like a adult app, which I would not condone. So maybe it would be called Lucid Display. Lucid Display. LUCIDISPLAY. Lucid Display. And it would be introduced at like E3 2050. Lucid Display. We are releasing 5 new dreamscapes for Lucid Display. The first one is space game. You can dream with people throughout the world. The second one is an anime world. where you can have your own anime waifu. Third one is medieval, of course, fantasy. Fourth one is Frigate, dude, another anime. And the fifth one is just reality, just modern day, just another copy, basically indistinguishable from our reality. But you can choose one of these 5 at the beginning of your sleep session. You plug in, and you're there, dude. I don't know about that. That would get pretty wacky, man. We're getting a little too wacky. Let me bring it back. All right, let me draw it in a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little too crazy here. All right. But yeah, no, there are devices now that I've been kind of looking into. I might have to dive into one of these. They apparently send light to your eyes while you're sleeping to induce lucid dreaming. So it's not necessarily influencing the brain, though in a sense I guess it is, but it's not sending, electrical signals to the brain to create visuals like a full dive setup, but it is sending reminders to the brain via light flashing outside of your eyelids. And the idea is it can track your eye movements. It's almost like a sleep mask. It covers your eyes, and it can track the muscles in your eyes to know when you fall into REM sleep, and then it'll send flashes to your eyes. So then it's like, hey, you're dreaming. Go ahead and start, flying in your dream. Start lucidity. Start lucid dreaming, and that's a pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty rad. I might dive into one of those. And I'll report back to y'all about that. It'd be pretty cool. But along those lines, again, of the technology for lucid dreaming, I've been using this device called the Muse headset, and it's an EEG headset. EEG, of course, stands for electronic entertainment. Gross. Don't quote me on that. But it reads the electrical signals from your brain during meditation. So you literally, you strap it to your head, you open an app, and you say, hey, I want to meditate for 15 minutes. And so you go, it creates a soundscape, like say a forest. So there's a baseline MP3 that plays, which is like a relaxing forest. And then when you start getting distracted, it knows that, and then it'll send like storm sounds. It'll send like thunder. So if you're thinking, just like calm baseline, you're thinking monkey, 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 and it'll just send a very relaxing noise. Monkey. And then when you start thinking banana, 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 it'll send like a thunder. And then if you just return again to your breath, to monkey, monkey, it'll return. And then if you stay in monkey long enough, it'll start sending little bird chirps. Little birds will start chirping in your ears. And that means you've reached total chill state. And it's nice, man. Like, I was a little skeptical at first, but I've been doing it. And hey, man, it's almost like a video game. Meditation becomes a video game at that point. It allows you to know when you're on track. And it's cool, man. I've been digging it. That's a Muse headset. So that's like, a little bit of brain to computer interface, because technically you can control it. Like, my dog is deep in a sleep right now. Lucy, wake up, girl. Lucy. There you go. She was growling in her sleep. She was slaying demons in her dreams, in her lucid dreams. But technically, you can kind of control it, because if you're calm and you hear the birds, and then you can begin to just like think of something else, and then it'll eventually switch to like thunder. So it's interesting, man. It's kind of the beginnings of a so-called EEG, brain to computer interface. And we kind of that term is funny because like technically a mouse is a brain to computer interface. You're using your hand to control the cursor to give this podcast a 5-star rating or a 1-star rating depending on what you think. You're using your thumb to tap on an app, using your fingers to type, that's technically brain to computer, just limited, just a little bit limited. Now, we move into the imagination realm. You're flying through a wonderful city. And the city is located in the middle of a desert. And as you swoop down, you notice a town square. You drop down into the town square, and there are people gathered in a circle. And they're watching a street performer. And the street performer is juggling 10 ducks. Live ducks. And the ducks aren't in pain. They're very calm. They're just chill. For a moment you think, are those real ducks? And sure enough, they are. They are very well trained. They're being juggled, 10 of them, via one man. And you think, oh my gosh, this is, oh my goodness. Now this is something else. Now this is, oh my goodness, I ain't never seen anything like this. That's what I say. I ain't never seen nothing like this. Obviously in this mind exploration, you have a southern accent. And you think, man, how am I going to tip this brother? And so you pull out your digital wallet and you throw him a Satoshi. Cryptocurrency. And then, as you throw him a Satoshi, you get a notification that you have to run that errand. And so then you click a button and the real world materializes around you. And you are in your apartment. And then you strap on your rollerblades and you go do your errand in the real world. There's someone outside my window that's rollerblading right now. So that just came into my mind. But cryptocurrencies integrated into virtual worlds. That is an interesting prospect. And I think it's one of the highest use cases for cryptocurrency, I think, is the ability to transact it in real time, not only in the physical world, not only at actual stores, but like in the virtual world, man, in the metaverse. It's the currency for the metaverse, the decentralized metaverse. And that's pretty much Decentraland. For those unfamiliar, Decentraland is a company founded in 2017 by Esteban Ordano and Ari Melik. The first fully decentralized world, Decentraland is controlled via the DAO. The DAO. So apparently they have their own token. And their pitch is the virtual destination for digital assets. We've gone full circle, folks. Back to the tortoise. You can test the limits of your imagination. You can create scenes, artworks, challenges, and more using the simple builder tool, then take part in events to win prizes. Explore, lose yourself in an amazing, evolving world. explore lands owned by users to experience incredible scenes and structures. I think this is probably the closest to the first iteration of the metaverse that we're seeing starting to formulate. Because like VR chat, again, the metaverse is kind of a blanket term, but VR chat is cool, but it's social. There's no questing, there's no task. That's what kind of bothers me about it. I was like, you're just standing around talking to people, and half the people are drunk. No, I'm kidding. I got nothing again. Love to everyone, but there's no like. I need like when I'm going into a game, especially a virtual reality. I need something to do. I gotta feel like I'm working. And again, I came across a really interesting Reddit comment yesterday. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and read it. I'm glad I saved this because the guy perfectly describes what I think, at least I personally, either hope to see or hope to build as the ultimate metaverse is. Okay, this is by user XDRVGY. Okay. Lucy, wake up. You're sleeping again. You're dreaming. Lucy. She is dreaming some deep dreams today. Okay, this is a Reddit comment. Quote, the eventual breakthrough VR MMORPG will be based on social VR. The first truly successful, addicting, and memorable VR MMORPG will be a VR chat with an RPG world and economy. To make a good VR MMORPG, it needs to have a first and foremost social features built into it, extensive character customization, and environments suitable for socialization. If it can have that, people can have a good time progressing together with just about any kind of gameplay, though that doesn't mean the gameplay has to be bad. VR chat is good for hanging out, but there's kind of nothing to do and no goals to work towards because it's a sandbox with no restrictions. In an MMORPG, the everything you want, places to visit, customization, have a place in the game, world, and economy. Character customization, instead of being simply assets downloadable somewhere and uploaded, would be based on RPG elements and in-game items you have to obtain. This gives completely new meaning to certain exclusives, rare or expensive items that you might show off, or just creating your own style with no regards to armor values. It should have enough variety and customizability so that it's not always simple questions of more rare equals cooler. Environments, instead of floating in some vast internet space, would exist in one big game world, and accessing them would depend on gameplay factors, such as places being behind dangerous areas, quests, or plain paywall. Some special locations could even relate to the quest choices that reflect your personality, which changes what kind of people you can find in these places. At some point, it will be inevitable for some people to rent a private instance room for certain non-mentionable activities. In traditional MMORPGs, outside of tight clan communities, most player interaction is transactional. In a social VR immersive MMORPG, who you are and how you conduct yourself can have a profound impact to how you interact with people and who you cooperate or fight against. That's the gist of it, and I think he's right on cue because there's no VR chat. You have the people with the default avatars, and you have the people with walking around as a 500-foot Autobahn or Autobot, and it's like, yeah, it's cool, woo for individual expression through avatar creation. But I think what makes MMORPGs fun is and social online worlds fun is if you see someone with dope armor, they worked hard for it. There's value to actually working in the economy, in the world, questing, and I think we're going to see that in the next generations of VR metaverse experiences. But until then, at least we have the the next iterations of VR MMORPGs coming out. Zenith, that's coming out in a couple months here. We have NYX, that's another sort of cyberpunk MMORPG that's coming out soon. And then Elysia is another sort of World of Warcraft style VR MMO coming out. And yeah, I think that those are kind of like the first waves of the VR MMORPG experience. The Vimorpg experience. And it's cool, man. I feel like we're going to be looking back on this in like a couple decades being like, yeah, man, remember logging into Zenith? To Zenith? Those were the early days, man. The early days of VR. Anyways, thanks for tuning in to the virtual experience. I hope you're out there having a great time in whatever you are doing. Maybe you're in VR right now. Maybe you're just in the car. Maybe you're riding a bike. Maybe you're working out. Maybe you're sitting. Maybe you're standing. Maybe you're upside down. Maybe you're right side up. I'll see you next time.